All right, everybody, this is the shit they don't tell you about cardio. Let's go. We're going to talk about cardio today, guys. We're going to break it down. Um, but first things first, we have less than 5 spots remaining for Command the Stage, which is at the end of March in Fort Lauderdale at Brett Contreras' Glute Lab. And I just pulled off a Houdini act. I got Alan Aragon to come and present. Now, this man demands a lot of attention, and I had to negotiate with him to keep the price down. So if you are not booked for Command the Stage at the end of March, where we are going to do probably do the same thing we did last year, Lexi, I'd like to do a podcast even while we're there.
Oh, I would love that. Yeah.
They'll
Well,
have great questions.
that would be awesome. That was so fun. That was honestly one of the highlights, in my opinion, of the year was the live podcast. And I mean,
Well, you know, let's throw Jamaica another curveball. You know how it is. It's just when she figures out everything, we gotta mix it up on her. So
yeah.
maybe we'll just have that be a part of the schedule, at some point.
I like that. Yeah, I'll throw that one at her. And for those of you that don't know, Jamaica is our amazing event coordinator. So she does, it's not really us three that like we don't put together the details of the events. And I think it's funny sometimes people are like, "Oh, thank you for doing this and this and this." And like I mean, although Paul, obviously you had a lot to do with getting Alan to come. I mean, Jamaica, she puts in all the good work behind the scenes. So she's the one to thank if you come to
It's
our event.
it's 100% a team effort, and I think that's the difference between being a part of Pro Physique. Like you, me, Evan, we could all just coach by ourselves and do our own thing, but there is power in like multiple people being a part of it. So our amazing coaches, our amazing staff, it just makes the year much more fun.
It's
Even like
so
even
much.
this podcast, guys, like on Tuesday mornings, I wake up excited. I'm like, yeah, got Evan and Lexi today.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I've gotten asked before, like, what is it that, like, 'cause I've been a part of the team for a very long time now, and I agree with you. Like, in my opinion, especially in this sport that, like, can be isolating, especially also, like, when you do what we do, we work from home. I love the team aspect. And like you said, I think there's power in numbers, and we all have different unique strengths and weaknesses that, like, can play off of one another very well. And it allows us to do these big events. And yeah, I love it.
So, I got a question. How are you guys handling the cold? Because I don't, I've literally been living in like tights.
Well,
Or refraining from going outside as much as possible.
Yeah, well, I had to be at the bus stop at 6:45 a.m. today, and it said 33 degrees in my car. I was like, what? What? Did I move to Buffalo and no one told me? Like, what's happening?
it is insane. Well, and I had a little scare last week too because I was like, crap. So my heat all of a sudden wasn't like I was going to turn it back on because we had that like couple of weeks where it was warm. So I had it off and then I go to turn it on last week and it was like not turning on. So I'm like, oh crap. Of course it would go out, when it's about to be nice and cold. So I called, thankfully, like through my condo association, they have people on site that can come and just check. And so there was a really nice maintenance man that came and he was here for probably like 2 hours, right? And because part of it is like my AC and so the whole HVAC system, it's a part of like the condo, it's part of my HOA. So they cover it all. So he's here for like 2 hours. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So finally he got it working, but I was a little worried there. I was like, of course, that would happen where my heat breaks right before we have like 30-degree days, but it's okay. It's on and it's all fine. It's good.
So I just noticed
That's
the
all when that
top of
stuff
Pearl
happens,
head,
though.
the top of Pearl's head looks like one of the ghosts from Pac-Man.
Yeah, I know. She has weird markings all over her head.
Aw.
She
She's so
does.
cute. She's our little
She's
co-host.
perfectly ugly. Isn't that right, sweet
Yeah.
girl?
Can you just, it'd be great if she could purr loud enough for us to hear, like, oh,
She's
Oh
purring pretty
my.
loud right now.
she's trying to get in the podcast. Look at her.
She's
She's
trying
on
to.
that
No,
microphone.
she hadn't left my side for like 4 days. I don't know what's going on. She just wants so much
So,
attention right now.
also, this podcast comes out on Monday, which will be the official day to start our 90-day transformation challenge. We are giving away $25,000. It's open worldwide, and our private support community has, more than 100 meal plans, training plans, and just going to be a fun 90 days. So if you guys are looking for something or you have somebody that's looking for something to like work towards, conveniently starts the day after the Super Bowl.
I love it. Yeah. No,
Conveniently.
I think it's great for I mean, I know so many people that could benefit from it. I was even going to try to encourage like my stepdad to do it. Like I think some people just thrive when they have a little
Hmm.
bit a challenge. So it's great for even if you're just one, like even if you're already working with a coach, you just want a little something. I know a lot of people struggle like when they're not in prep, they want like something to kind of feel like they're working towards. So it's a
Yep,
great challenge to just sign up for.
it is.
Yeah.
That's it. And you can do it on your own. You can use our stuff or you can work with one of our coaches. Listen, it's been so fun to do over the years. And I think some of the amazing transformations that I've seen are just proof that you kind of need a deadline.
You do.
You need
Yeah,
a
I've
deadline.
been I've been discussing that with a lot of competitors recently, like have had, people that they're deep into their improvement season and they're like, I need like give me something like not a deadline, but like something that we can work towards. Like I have one client and she's coming to the Arnold and I'm like, well, let's kind of make that like that's your little mock show date or thing you're working towards, right? So like sometimes I feel like mentally we all need that.
I don't know, Evan, if you're
Hmm.
planning on going, but let's coordinate um the Arnold this year because I would like to get us all to get an Airbnb and stuff. So
Sweet.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm excited for the Arnold. But yeah, we'll talk about that afterwards. And I do have a question of the day for you guys. So
do
just
it.
a random, like fun question to think about. So if you could travel anywhere in the world right now, and I feel like this is a good time of like year to ask this because everybody's, cold and it's winter. If you could travel like to one spot in the world right now, where would it be? If money wasn't, a worry, just where would you travel? And I'm curious what you guys would say. What would you guys answer that question as?
That's interesting. Where would I
Anyone in the world
want to
right
go?
now?
Yeah, like anywhere in the world. Like if you could just get flight tickets and get, all the travel, like where would you travel to? I don't know. I've kind of been on a travel kick. I've been watching a lot of like travel vlogs and whatnot. So I think this has just been on my mind.
Probably Japan.
Ooh, okay.
I mean, there's a show there next week, right? Isn't it coming up?
End of month. So
End of
like,
the month.
yeah, 3 more weeks, I think.
Oh, that's right. Because I considered going to that, but I couldn't because there's something that weekend as well, and then also the Arnold right after. Where would I go? Yeah, that's a good question. So put in your comments below. You know, I haven't been to Australia in a few years, and their seasons are the opposite of ours.
I
So
was
it's
gonna
summer in
say that.
Australia.
That's exactly what I was going to say is Australia. And I have three Aussie clients that I know if they're listening, they're probably going to comment, be like, come to Australia. I would love to go there one day. It's definitely on my bucket list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm just making sure you guys can't hear the heater that's buzzing in the background here. Sweet.
No.
That's
Couldn't
on
hear the
doing with the
cat
cold.
purring, and we can't hear that's a good microphone. It's got just you.
Zoom does a good job at shutting out outside noise, I've noticed. Like, because a lot of times I've been on Zooms where people will be like, can you hear that? I'm like, no. So,
Nope. Right.
yeah. Well,
Cool.
let's get into it. Shit they don't tell you about cardio.
Yeah, so I'm going to start this off because I think, at least from my perspective, I put out a lot more content than you guys to like the general public, right? Like, and my YouTube has just gone bonkers this last month. Like my subscribers have shot up, my views have shot up, and obviously it's around the topics of like losing body fat. And so one of the topics I covered was you always see new trends come. But when you've been doing this for 30 years, they're not new trends. They repackage them and they go, hey, try this new trend. So I saw something one day and it said, Japanese walking method burns fat 5 times faster than just walking alone. And I was like, yes, let's go. Let's figure this out. Why Japan? So this is the key to packaging something and making it sound fancy. Japan has the lowest obesity rate in the world, right? And they also have one of the highest longevity rates in the world. Their average, so of course their walking must be better. No, nobody in Japan's worried about their walking, right? So it's just packaged as that because I wanted to find out why it was called this. It's basically just a plan where you walk at a regular pace for 3 minutes and you walk at a faster pace for 3 minutes. So it's just intervals.
Wow. So interesting, all these different fads that come out just with unique names that kind of intrigue you, right? And it's funny that we're talking about cardio today because I was thinking about this like just yesterday, ironically enough, where it was like, when I first started in the gym, when I first got my first gym membership, I was still kind of in my running era. This was in high school, and I think this is where a lot of at least females kind of start, where especially like Gen Pop, you join a gym and there's that gym intimidation. You don't have a lot of confidence in knowing like what to do on the weights. So that's when a lot of people they go on the cardio machines. Those are pretty much easy and foolproof. Foolproof. You can't mess them up, and you kind of hide over there. And like that's what I did when I first started in the gym. Is I just went over to the cardio machinery. But something like I've just been kind of observing as I go to the gym recently is take a look, and this is not to knock anybody doing cardio. I don't want to make it sound like that, but like a lot of females and males, like they want that lean look, right? Muscle with low body fat. And when you like generally just observe, how people look that are on the weight side of things at the gym versus the people that are over on a piece of cardio machinery on the Stairmaster, on the treadmill for like an hour plus, you notice differences in like the way people look, right? Like I just tend to find that people that live on the cardio machines just don't have as much muscle versus the people who are on, the weight side of things. And again, that's not to knock how anybody looks by any means, but I just feel like so many females, especially, they want to look lean, they want that muscle, yet they're so afraid to come away from the cardio machine and to actually lift heavy.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I also think a lot of people, when it comes to cardio, are just afraid of actually doing any cardio that takes any effort as well, along with that. I think social media has sold people that it shouldn't be hard, or and not that it needs to be hard, but that there shouldn't be a lot of struggle that comes along with it.
Well, and something I'm reminded every time I do this because so for the last month I walked 60 minutes every day. Like, and I put no stipulations on what that meant. Just walk 60 minutes every day. Um, because we don't do that, right? So I said I'm just going to walk. And what I realized was walking on an incline treadmill for 60 minutes, that's a hard workout. Like a lot of
Hmm.
you are like tired by the end. And so this is day 3 of February. So now I've done this for 34 days in a row or whatever the number is. And it's incredible how much more adapted I am. Whereas I'll give you an example. The first session I did was a 3 incline speed of 3 miles per hour. And I was exhausted at the end, and I could have gone higher and faster, but I was pretty good. Today I finished my session at an incline 7 speed 3.2, and that was limiting myself. I can go as high as 10 and 3.4 right now and stay in that range. So it's just crazy how we do get so deconditioned from things. And it wasn't
Yeah.
that long ago that I dieted down, but it's like, man, it's almost like relearning that skill, tracking calories again, doing my cardio again. But yeah, like if it was easy, everyone would do it. You
Yeah.
know,
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think like there's two sides of it too, because we could talk about like there's people that should be doing cardio that aren't doing cardio, but there's also people that are doing way too much cardio and abusing that variable too.
Mhm.
But to your point, Paul, I feel like, I know a lot of competitors that listen to our Monday episodes here. That's why like, I hear this all the time from my athletes, especially if it's their first prep. They'll be like, wow, it will be maybe 3 months into prep and they're like, all right, coach, something's wrong. Like I can't get my heart rate up as easily as I once was able to on, with incline walking. And, generally you're going to be able to start prep. You're going to be a little bit more probably deconditioned to cardio, and you're going to probably be able to get your heart rate up really easily on the machine without having to put that incline up a ton and that speed super fast. Whereas as time goes on, you get more conditioned towards that cardio, and you're going to find that you have to probably raise the incline up the speed just to keep your heart rate up, right? So that's a very common thing. I feel like for us coaches, like that's obvious, but some people don't realize like that's very normal. The better you get at cardio, the harder you kind of have to make the settings to still efficiently get that heart rate up.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that what burns calories in cardio is the heart rate, the duration, and your age, the kind of that calculation that goes along with that. And what I see a big issue with is when people that use cardio as a form of punishment, right? Or they use cardio to overcompensate for their heavy overeating. So I want everyone to kind of think about this, just like what Paul was talking about, to where he started the beginning of his walking and he was able to get a lot out of, well, it wasn't a little, but way less than he was doing at the end, right? Meaning his speed was lower and his incline was lower than it was at the end because your body does adapt to it. So if you're overeating an abundance of calories and you're doing a bunch of cardio on top of that, your body is still going to adapt to that cardio. So when you want to diet and you want to drop your calories, you're going to have to go up from that already high ceiling that you put or high floor that you put for yourself with cardio with that. It's all variable here with that. And so when you see a lot of people that are overweight that are doing a ton of cardio, but they're also eating a ton of food, that means when they do want to try to get in shape, not saying, and the issue is they probably think they're trying to get into shape now, but when they really want to do it right and they cut their food back, that whole variable of cardio is removed. Not only is it removed, it can't go less than what you've already been doing it at. That is your
Right.
new floor. That is your baseline for everything. That's your
Yeah,
baseline.
that's
And
a
it makes
great
it
point.
that much more difficult to be able to lose weight and get in shape.
Absolutely. That's why I always tell my competitors, I always jokingly say you don't want to be that great at cardio before you start prep because you're right.
No.
And like where you start a prep or a fat loss phase with cardio, that is your essentially that's kind of your basement, right? That's where you're starting and you can only go up from there if you want to use that as a fat loss tool variable, right? So, and also even like and it's very dependent on how much you have to lose, like in a contest prep. But even if you're starting a contest prep and you're already doing a moderate amount of cardio, you may tell yourself at that moment in time, oh, this is easy. I could do this for the rest of my life. But like, think about if that's your basement and that's where you're having to build up on, that's going to get really strenuous really quickly, right? So, that's a great point that you make, though, Evan, with like, people when they're trying to lose weight, they kind of almost counteract, like they eat a lot and then they kind of think they're counterbalancing that with doing a lot of excess cardio. And then it's like they kind of strip away being able to use that cardio variable to help them to lose fat in the future.
And especially when you're eating a good amount, you have a lot of fuel, right?
Yeah.
So you're using all that fuel to be able to push your cardio. And then what's going to happen when you don't have as much fuel? It's going to be hard to even get up to where your baseline is at that point, along with it. There's so many backward things with that. Number one is diet, and then the cardio is what you use to increase it after
Yeah.
that. And I
Well, I
really think that's why so many people stall. And when you have so many people that, and look, I've worked with a few ladies that are like this that started off doing a ton of cardio. Yes, their food was really high too. And we cut them down on their food, but eventually they hit that sticking point, right? And they hit that sticking point where we have to end up sitting in maintenance for an extended period of time to be able to let their body get used to it and be able to like back down and get to like a normal baseline and reducing some of that cardio and reverse out of that to be able to get back in a place to do it again. It starts a vicious cycle that can be really hard to get out of, and it demoralizes people.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'll share this and I may even post now that I'm thinking maybe I'll make a post about this. Now, I, I know some people don't, not everybody wants to, have muscle and look like a bodybuilder, but I will tell you, like when I look at how I looked when I was in my running era and I was literally just doing long distance running, I'm talking like 5 miles plus 6 days a week, wasn't doing much weights. This was in high school. To be honest, when you looked at me, like I just looked kind of, I call myself skinny fat. Like I was skinny with but there was no muscle definition anywhere. When I started backing off of cardio and using it more as a tool and putting my energy and focus more towards weightlifting, that is when, oh my God, I had way more like progress when it came to my physique and adding more muscle and looking leaner, right? But I think so many times people associate a quote unquote good workout with sweating, with getting their heart rate up. So cardio can definitely be a slippery slope in that realm of things.
I love the term skinny fat because it's one of those things like as a physique athlete, all of us, when we walk around, Lexi, you were just on a cruise, and anyone that wasn't associated with the Angel competitions, who we have some exciting news I'm told about.
Yeah, well, I guess, I mean, I can announce it now, but I can also officially announce it next week because we'll start
Yeah.
dropping those ads. But they are our official first, like, they're going to be, what did I call it? Like, our main sponsor of our podcast for 2026. So that's
Yeah,
exciting.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just exciting. Thank you, Angels, for but anyway, so you're on that cruise, Lexi, and you're walking around. You stand out. You
Yeah.
look different. Like
Yeah.
you, and this is not to knock people that run marathons or people that do endurance sports, but if you just see that person walking down the street or at the beach, you don't think anything of them, right?
Right.
It's just a different, you know, yeah.
And I don't know if you guys have been hearing this a lot, but I've been hearing this quite frequently in certain consult calls where I'll get people and they're like, I'll ask them what their goals are. And they're like, Lexi, I just want people to look at me and know that I work out and that I lift because they'll tell me they're like I don't feel like you could look at me right now and think that. And like that's exactly how I felt back in the day when I was just in my running era. And again, not to knock anybody who does that, but I feel like if you don't couple that with weight training, you do tend to fit more of that like that mold of just you don't have much muscle. And so somebody may look at you and not even know that you are athletic and that you lift. And I know that was always big for me because I was like, gosh, I feel like I work so hard, but somebody would look at me and never think that I probably had stepped foot in a gym. And it was just because I was abusing cardio and I didn't have any muscle, right? So I felt like I was just skinny fat.
Well, let's
Yeah.
talk a little bit about the mechanisms behind cardio and endurance training. Lexi, I'm going to let you use your big brain because I know you went to college for this. So let's talk about muscle fiber types and how different styles of training can impact that.
Oh gosh, no, you're putting me on the spot. You're better for this. You talk about the muscle fiber types. I did take
Listen,
classes on
I'm
this,
not, I
but
don't want you to go into all the fiber types, but just the type 1 and type 2. And I was just thinking like, like endurance training, you develop more type 1 fibers, which are smaller and obviously better for endurance versus, weight training and explosive exercises, which is going to be more for developing more type 2. Now, the thing that stuck out to me when I was studying this stuff was like there are lots of muscle fibers that they haven't even identified. They just label them as different things, but they are adaptable, right? So genetics are going to predetermine a lot, but within our genetic code, there is going to be a shift based on our lifestyle, right? So like you can, within reason, change the way you look and the way your body responds. And I correlate this like, listen, you can never make a poodle look like a pit bull, right? I don't want to call out any people because, no poodles or pit bulls are listening, but you can certainly make a poodle look more like a pit bull or a pit bull look more like a poodle based on their environments, right? And it's the same thing for us. I'm not suggesting that through diet and exercise, I can ever look like Ronnie Coleman, but I can sure as hell look a lot better than the version of me that would, not exercise, smoke cigarettes, drink all day, right? So like you can preferentially create that type 2. And as someone who I did a lot of endurance training as a baseball player in the 80s and in college in the 90s. It was thought that it was better to be an endurance athlete. I was told to run a lot. Now that's completely shifted. Now it's no one cares about this, but I do. But the point being is like I noticed a complete transformation when I stopped running for 45 minutes a day and started lifting for 45 minutes a day.
yeah, that's exactly you nailed it. That's what I noticed with myself too. And I feel like it was much easier said than done. I don't know if it's this way. Like, I don't know if you guys find like as males it's this hard, but I feel like for a lot of females, and I know like this was my case, I remember it was such a weird feeling to back off the cardio and to do more weights because I had such a hard time in the beginning, which like I did it, which I'm glad I did, and I followed through with it. But I had such a hard time not like feeling like like when I would lift, I would feel like, oh my God, I'm not breaking enough of a sweat. I'm not, getting as like out of breath. And I would almost feel like I'm not working out as hard enough. And that was a really hard, kind of shift for me. But I felt like my physique did a complete 180 when I started backing off on the cardio and actually, still did it, but in a lot of like in a very smaller realm. And I focused a lot more of my efforts on like weight training. And yeah, that was when my body changed the most.
And Evan, I know you didn't do much endurance training in college because you were more focused on speed and strength, right, as a football player.
But yeah, I mean, I also ran track though, right? So there was some endurance part with that. Well, I call it endurance because I ran decathlon. So the 1500, which is 100 meters short of the mile to me, is absolutely an endurance sport to me because I was so horrible at it. Yeah, I mean, it's two different types of training, right? And they definitely do two different types of things. Um, but when we talk about like body composition, right? Like which one of those really matters? Because I think they're very different. Like if we talk about using one as a fat burning tool and one as a muscle building tool, I think those can be looked at differently too. And that can also go forward to as far as the training is concerned, right? Like training like fast twitch and slow twitch muscle fibers and kind of what that looks like and the benefits to that, the different types of muscle fibers and different muscle groups. I think that that stuff can be important. I think that I think that's way down the line, especially talking about muscle building on knowledge for people that Is it really beneficial? Is it not? I just don't think most people train remotely hard enough or find close to failure. I think that stuff is way, way more important to it. I like to use a lot of house analogies, and I think something like this, like a house, the people don't have the foundational stuff remotely right, or the framing of the house, and they're trying to pick out, which knob they want on their shower. And to me, I think that's a lot of that type of stuff. Um, that people focus on because people are wanting to figure, hey, what is the deal I'm doing? What's the thing I need to do to be able to get to where I need to go? And they think it's this mythical thing that's there to get there. But that's just my kind of opinion on that too. But yeah, I mean, it's I don't have as formal education as you guys have on that type of stuff. Especially, when it comes to the cardio side of things with it. But of course, there's different types of cardio when it comes to that too. Like if you're talking about like HIIT cardio or interval cardio or sprint cardio or
Yeah,
hills or any of
let's
That's
dig
that.
what
in,
I
let's
when I
dig into all the types of cardio because I'm sure it's going to come back around. Like it was very in vogue when I started in this space to do a lot of hit cardio, right?
Hmm.
And I fully bought in, drank the Kool-Aid. And listen, I'm not going to say it didn't work, but I'm going to say there's better ways to get where you're going than what I did. And I've experienced that as a coach and personally. But bro science and anecdote and whatever you want to call like the low hanging fruit of like, look at this dumb bodybuilder, what he's doing. Oh, sometimes I go back to that. You know what got me to start walking for cardio? I had watched, I mean, I'm going to date myself, but the Ronnie Coleman video series, The Unbelievable, where he basically documented, and this is back when you had to buy the DVDs. It was like a multiple DVD set of Ronnie Coleman's prep. Evan, you've seen this, right? Yeah, where he basically they showed his life. He was working full time as a police officer in Arlington,
Yep.
Texas, and they literally like they were at his house in the morning, and he would get up and walk on the treadmill, eat his breakfast, sit in his squad car, eat his like 44 ounces of chicken and barbecue sauce, go to the gym, take off his cop uniform, and then there's this superhuman physique. He would deadlift 800 pounds. He'd go home, eat more chicken, walk again, and I thought. Here's this guy who weighs near 300 pounds, deadlifting 800 pounds, and he's 3% body fat. That's not an exaggeration, by the way. He is extremely lean. Um, and he's just walking. So why is
Yeah.
that too good for me? Because of science says you're telling me Ronnie Coleman should have been outside running sprints? Ah, let me give
I
this a
think,
shot. I was shocked how easy it was to
yeah.
lose body fat with walking.
Now let's also talk about the incline he was walking on, Paul, in those
Oh,
videos.
he was flat. But again,
Also,
a
Ronnie is 300 pounds too, so
right.
a lot of
Him just moving is a lot. And
a
also
lot of
the
exertion.
amount of the amount of weight he was lifting. And that was, I didn't they don't follow his whole prep. And obviously he's taking some supernatural supplements that are going to aid in fat loss and this and that. But it was still just I'm like, if this man can walk 2 hours a day, have a full-time job, and be Mr. Olympia, well, let me try it. And I was shocked. I said, let me just try walking 2 hours a day. Shocked. The weight just fell off me. And that's just kind of what got me going down that path. And, you know, going back to the problem with hit cardio that I ran into was twofold. And did you ever do a lot of hit cardio, Lexi, in prep?
never in prep. I did it more in my days before, like competing, where I would do, and now that I look back at it, I'm like, I don't know if I would truly say it was hit. It was more of that like interval training. And we can even get into that too, because I feel like the term hit cardio is very much so abused amongst a lot of people. Like a lot of people will say, oh, I'm doing hit cardio, but they're doing like 30-second intervals, then they're resting for 30 seconds. And like anybody that knows true hit cardio, that is not what it is. Like you shouldn't be able to do a hit interval for 30, 60 seconds at a time. That's more so intermittent.
No,
So
No.
I did more of that, I think. Like when I think about it, it wasn't probably true hit. And again, I think a lot of people listening to this that may have, may think, oh, I do hit or I've done hit before. It's probably more interval based because we can kind of break down like hit cardio, truthfully, what would you guys say? Like 15 to 20 seconds of like all out, like you are winded, you are breathless, 20 seconds, and then you need to rest for like what, 60 to 90 seconds to recover. Like that is true hit. The hit where it's like 30 seconds, 60 seconds on, 60 seconds off for 30 minutes. that is not HIIT. That's just interval training.
Yeah. And a lot of it has to do with your heart rate too. Interval training, especially HIIT training, is maximum heart rate that you can possibly get to. And then you don't go again until your heart rate's back down to your baseline. So real HIIT training, you could get on a bike and you can pedal as fast as you can. Your heart rate's up to 160, 170, whatever that is. And then you got to wait. The first time you break down, it could be 2 to 3 minutes before you're able to go again. It could be 45 seconds. Or the longer you go, it's going to take you longer to get your heart rate back down. So there's
Right.
no like 30 seconds on, minute and a half off with it. There's no exact time. You have to be conscious of your heart rate the whole time doing it if you're truly going to be doing HIIT cardio. But most
Yeah.
people just think interval cardio is HIIT training.
Now, I will say this. So if you take a person that just walks for 60 minutes straight versus a person that does an interval every 5 minutes for 1 minute or, half you will burn more calories during that session.
Hmm.
And the science behind HIIT cardio, which again, you guys are correct. I heard it described as cardio to failure. So we would turn the resistance on the bike up and go as hard as we
Uh-huh.
could. And if you can go for more than 10 to 15 seconds, you're not going all out. Like literally, we used to go to the track and do sprints. We would do car pushes, we would do sled drags, whatever we could think of to just make it fun. That is a completely different animal than just going a little bit faster or going on the stairs. And I don't think you can do HIIT cardio on the stairs. It doesn't go fast enough, right, Evan? I mean, it's like,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think it goes fast enough to do that now.
yeah.
No,
Yeah.
and
Well,
most of it, like you said, needs to be done on a bike, Paul. Like that's where most of it done.
But dangerous
Or
to do it on the stairs. I would never tell someone to
yeah,
sprint up the stairs.
and on a
no.
treadmill it can be difficult too. You have to crank it up so fast to do it. And most treadmills at a gym don't go high enough. You can get them ones like Orange Theory or the professional ones that do get fast enough where you can full out sprint.
Yeah, well, they have
But
those assault bikes, or they have those
yeah,
treadmills, the arc treadmills where you can sprint.
hmm
Yeah,
Yeah.
potentially. But
but the
again,
bikes you can turn the resistance up like that, and that's basically mimicking like a Wingate, right? Where you're dropping the weights and,
the,
and
the
making
really evil is the bike, the Wingate bike,
the
or
Wingate.
if you try
Yeah,
to replicate it at the gym where you get the RPMs going as fast as you can, then they add resistance. I almost vomited on the Wingate bike when we
horrible,
were testing HIIT cardio back in the day with Lane and at USF, and let me tell you, man, that is not a good
very
feeling.
hard.
Like the room gets dizzy, and
Yeah. Well, it's almost like if you're doing true HIIT cardio, I don't know about you guys, but like when I used to do what I thought was HIIT cardio, like you almost get a little bit of that anxiety before you do it. You're like, oh my God, you just know. It's like if you have two max tests where you just get a little bit of anxiety before you do it because you know you're going to be pushing yourself to the limits. And like that's just something sometimes you have to mentally prepare for. And I think a big portion too, like you said earlier, Paul, you are burning more calories when you're doing HIIT cardio. And this is where I think a lot of people fall into the whole, well, why are we not utilizing more HIIT cardio if it burns more calories? I think we've touched on this before in the podcast. Well, yes, you may be burning more calories in the said session compared to walking on incline, steady state. However, you have to kind of think about like your NEAT activity the rest of the day specifically, right? Like if you're doing a HIIT cardio session, you're going to probably be very gassed and taxed by the end of that, almost to the point where like you're just not going to want to move the rest of the day, right? Your NEAT activity, your steps are going to be very low. Whereas it's like when you're doing LISS, low impact steady state cardio via walking, elliptical, whatever it may be, you don't feel as gassed afterwards, right? And like that's not always a bad thing because guess what? You're going to probably move more throughout the day. Your steps are going to be higher. You're going to be able to exert and push harder in your actual weight training sessions. So that kind of explains too why, some people may wonder, well, okay, if HIIT cardio burns more calories, why aren't we doing more of it? Well, it does in the session, but that doesn't always mean it burns more calories in the actual day, considering your NEAT may be lower.
well, and this is where sometimes evidence-based approaches to nutrition and training, they don't look at the big picture because I didn't mind the HIIT cardio so much. Yeah, I would get anxiety or I would be like, okay, if I was doing a HIIT session after a training session, that would be on my mind the whole time. And it was almost like I would just think about doing one sprint at a time and I didn't try to elaborate on my thoughts too much. I just would go in knowing I had to get it done. Whereas walking, I actually look forward to it. I know when I'm done walking, I'm going to feel better. Like I have more energy. I have great focus. So the hit cardio for me, the real problem, and I didn't realize this until years later when I did a prep without any hit, was when you do hit cardio, you increase your VO2 max so much. My resting heart rate got so low when they came to my office to do a health check on me, they could not detect my pulse. It was below 30 beats per minute at rest.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
And
pretty low. I have a pretty low resting heart rate. I always have, but it's not that low.
well, this no, granted, at the end of a prep, when I was, and I'm going to exaggerate, but I was 5% body fat, fully striated glutes. I had been in prep for 6 months. I was doing 3 hit sessions a week. I was basically a superhuman at that point. Like I was like, my body was in a weird place with low body fat and extremely high VO2 max. I would get dizzy when I stood up. I was extremely cold all the time. My mood swings were quite rapid because blood sugar was constantly on the rise and drop, from this high intensity interval sessions. Like it had an impact on my like other areas of my life because of the extreme nature of it. And I associate the extreme cold with the extreme low blood pressure. So your heart beats so efficient. You're not moving blood around your body as efficiently, you're as much. Your blood volume's a little bit lower. And so I would often just have these like dizzy spells. Hypoglycemia was more frequent when I was that lean doing hit cardio. Just weird things that I've never experienced since. And I didn't need to be the world's best sprinter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
I think that's where, I always remind my competitors of that too. Like in prep, I'm like, your job is to not be the best cardio athlete, right? Like your job is to be
Right.
the best weightlifter at the end of the day. And then some people kind of lose sight of that. But I noticed too, like even not just doing hit cardio, but even doing like those forms of cardio that are a little bit more higher impact in prep, like stairs, biking, or maybe more of like that miss cardio, moderate impact, steady state. I noticed a dramatic drop in my recovery and therefore my lifting quality sucks. Like, whereas if I'm just incline walking, I notice I feel way better when I'm weight training and the session quality is way better that way.
Yeah. And that's the other thing that got negatively impacted was, I don't care who you are, you start to compromise on a leg day when you've done 3 hit sessions. And I
Absolutely.
also I also tweaked a hamstring towards the end of prep. Luckily, it wasn't terribly bad, but I thought, oh man, if I'd actually got hurt doing a sprint at the end of prep, body fat's low, connective tissue is a little bit
Mhm.
more, susceptible to injuries, and I'm running uphill sprints, you know, it just wasn't. I was like, man, I'm okay. What's the point of this if I get hurt to do a bodybuilding show? So, I mean, and I don't think any of us really have anybody doing high intensity interval training or hit cardio, but it's going to come back around.
Yep.
Oh
Well,
yeah,
eventually.
it will. Yeah, I've had very specific scenarios where I've incorporated it in a very small dose. And sometimes even, I think another argument that people will make over HIIT is, well, it can be a little bit more time effective, like for people that
Mhm.
literally don't have an hour to spend on a treadmill, like just walking. And in that case, if we've kind of maximized all of our other
I
resources.
do love intervals. I think I use intervals frequently, especially like when we plateau, but actually hit cardio is probably the one that's the most misunderstood and the most difficult to replicate. But I will say it looks the coolest. It's
Yeah, it
great for
does.
content. I mean, what's that guy, Ashton, whatever, where he's jumping out of the car and running sprints and he's all jacked and he's
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah,
like looks
well,
great.
it's not only that too, like in prep, as your body is getting leaner, your food's getting lower, your recovery is going to downregulate, right? So like adding something like HIIT that's very taxing on the central nervous system can kind of, put recovery in even a worse spot. So you have to be careful with implementing that too when you're doing something as extreme as like a contest prep.
Yeah, I just remember how extremely cold I was at the end of that prep, and I didn't have that feeling the last couple preps. Now, I'm not saying body temperature doesn't regulate as easy when you have less body fat, but this was less about the body fat, I think, and more about the resting heart rate being lower, and then the nutrient partitioning from running sprints multiple times per week. Low blood sugar was very common, and so that's where the moodiness would come in. And I don't know, I just I think cardio as a tool to burn calories, you got to be careful that you're not, stepping over dollars to pick up nickels, like Evan likes to say,
Yeah, it's a
or
good.
paying attention to a doorknob when your foundation's a mess.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the most common form of cardio that we see, which I would consider outside of us would be stairs, the stairs.
Yeah,
Yeah, I feel like a lot of competitors have this idea that so I'm not sure if you guys hear this one a lot, but I feel like a lot of competitors have the idea that either stairs are better than incline walking because they burn more calories, or this one, the one I hear a lot is, well, I want to do the stairs because I feel like my legs hold more body fat, and I think the stairs will help to condition my legs a little bit better. Those are like the two biggest things I think I hear when it comes to the stairs.
yeah. I mean, anything, I think anything that's really high intensity can increase risk for injury, right? I mean, it can, especially when you're depleted. So if those things are going to be implemented, I think earlier on in prep is probably the best time to have those done. Um, I mean, could they be implemented later on in prep? Yes. Have they been implemented later in prep? Typically, but they're not optimal, right? But sometimes people can't handle optimal in their life because of time limitations, and you have to do what you have to do to be able to get to where you need to go with that. But yeah, I mean, like I've known people that have been injured doing that type of stuff before. I know someone that tore a calf going into a major show doing HIIT cardio, going into that stuff, and it's unfortunate, right?
Was that
Um,
Sadiq?
no, it was Aaron that did that.
I thought
Yeah.
Sadiq did something too a couple years ago. He was doing like some sprints outside for like an ad campaign and tore something.
He may have.
Yeah.
He may have. So yeah, yep. Um, look, it's also about what you enjoy too, right? That's also part of it because it has to be something that's not absolutely complete hell to you with that. And that's like with anything having to do with any sort of prep or fat loss. It has to be something that's sustainable for you. Some
Yeah.
people can't walk on a treadmill for an hour and 20 minutes straight. You can, but some just aren't going to do it,
Right.
right? And it's about getting something that people will do to be able to get to where we need to go. And I think that's a big difference between us as coaches and other coaches I see. And I've started working with a lot of clients recently that I've worked with other coaches, and it's crazy to see how stringent some of them are on certain things
Sure.
with it. And I don't understand that. If someone could explain to me the reason why, I'm more than open to listening, but no one can ever really do
I
that,
think if
right?
I'm being honest, I think it's a lack of experience and ego because
Yeah.
it's if you haven't experienced doing something you hate, then you can't fathom why you would be able to tell someone, "Oh, you need to do the stairs," when they could do the elliptical or they could do the incline walking. They're going to get a similar result. But I have a caveat. I want to talk about how to do cardio wrong. But also like the ego of like I told you guys a couple podcasts ago, I had a consult with a young lady, and it was because she asked her coach if she could swap, I forget what it was, broccoli for peas or turkey for
Yeah.
chicken, and the guy was like, "Well, you wouldn't tell a surgeon what scalpel to use." And I
Oh
was
yeah.
like, "Wow, the hubris there. Okay, no ego. All right." Yeah. So I think it's the same thing. It's like, don't you dare question me. I'm the coach. I know the things. And if you question me, you don't want to be a champion. And it's like, not true. So yeah, that's the conversation I love to have with people. It's like, if someone tells me like, Coach, I love HIIT, I'll figure out a way to fit some in for them. I've had it happen in the past.
Mhm.
Likewise, if someone's like, Coach, I really want to do the stairs, I say, okay, let's do the stairs. You will burn more calories, but let's pay attention to performance and muscle volume. Because my concern, the one time I tried the stairs, I noticed the difference in size in my legs. I was like, no, I can't do this
Yeah.
I
again.
was
Yeah.
gonna say that. That's one thing I've noticed with some clients. I can't say this is everybody's standpoint, but I have this one client that comes to mind, and she like loved the stairs, and we kind of downplayed the stairs a little bit and added in more walking, and the glutes were also the area. Oh, keep zooming in on you, Paul.
What?
Um, But I noticed a big difference in just her glute fullness when we downplayed the stairs and we were doing more walking. I just found that her glutes were popping a little bit more, her balance and her lower body was overall better. So I don't know if you guys have noticed that with people, but I've noticed that with a couple of clients. Just their glutes overall look fuller and their legs look more like proportional and balanced when they're doing more walking as opposed to all
It's
the stairs.
you're doing a mini lunge every step on a Stairmaster. You're hip hinging. So
Yep.
you're basically, when we talked a little bit earlier about muscle fiber types, you're kind of conditioning some muscle fibers to be more endurance based if you're going to do 2 hours on the stairs, which is not unheard of at all. The other thing that I don't love about the stairs is I think the majority of the people do this, but I could be wrong. So if you feel like I'm calling you out, you probably are doing this. They like hug the machine and they just move their feet, almost like they take the weight of their body off of. So they look at the machine and it says they're burning 500 calories an hour, but by leaning on it and just, just the feet going up and down, I'm like, no, you need to be putting the full weight of your body into that.
That
You guys
is
agree with that?
so, I totally agree. And because it drives me crazy when I see people just like hovering half of their body weight on top of the stairs. But I also feel like it's kind of the equivalent to when you're walking on incline and you see those people like holding on to the treadmill as they just raise it up. I'm like,
Max
what?
incline, and they're not even inclining because they're just laying on it.
Yes, because I notice with my heart rate, if I do the stairs per se, I notice a big difference between like I never lean on it, but sometimes I'll challenge myself if I'm feeling extra that day, like to just not touch anything, like literally just walk as if it's stairs. And my heart rate is always higher when like the less body weight I put on the machine.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course your heart rate's going to be higher, right? I think I'm a little bit different when it comes to that. I really don't care if people lean or people do whatever they want to do on it. I remember there, and I take this from my personal background with this. So sometimes I would lean on the Stairmaster, but my heart rate was 148. So why do I give a shit if I'm leaning on the Stairmaster or not at that point? It's doing what it needs to do, right? It's doing what it
Oh
needs
yeah,
to
well
do.
if you're comparing apples to apples, Evan, like your heart rate and
Yeah.
your distance. I just think most of the people that are doing that are like, "Oh, look, I burned 700 calories." And I want to be like, "No, you didn't." You
Oh
know,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
because the
And
machine's
look,
doing all the work because
yeah.
the stairs will move without you.
And
Um,
it's a big thing when I talk about calories burned, because I do have a spot on my Google sheet for clients to put that information down. I tell them, I'm like, I only want that information if it comes off a wearable. If it comes off your
Yeah.
Apple Watch or comes off your Oura Ring, comes off your Fitbit or your Garmin, that's the only way I want it. Only way I want it. Even at that, it's not going to be accurate, but at least it has data that's proven over time and time and time and time and time for you when it comes to that, right? So
I
it's
like it
just
if it's the same machine and the same style. So like, not that I trust it, but I do cardio every day on my treadmill, and I don't care what it says. I just care that it says more than last week.
yeah.
Yeah, that's funny you mention that because when I do cardio on my Peloton bike, it has like a output score, and I don't really strive to hit like a specific output, but I what I will just focus on is like if I'm doing a 30-minute class, I try to keep that output very consistent, like day to day. It's kind of the same thing as like seeing how many calories you burn. As long as it's staying consistent on that same machine day to day, I use that as like a good range of reference.
I did a fun video, might be a year ago or more, where I actually wore a heart rate monitor
Hmm.
and I tested calories burned with a bunch of different forms of cardio. And so I literally just took a walk outside, normal walk, just walking around the neighborhood. Then I did a walk outside with a rucksack. Then I did a walk outside with a rucksack with like a lot of weight, like 50 pounds, right? Then I got on the incline treadmill. Then I got on the incline treadmill with the rucksack. And walking outside, if I remember correctly, was somewhere around 200 calories an hour burned, which might sound good, but when you consider you probably burn about 140 calories an hour sitting on the couch, it's not that much difference, right? But incline walking with the rucksack was like 750 calories burned per hour. So there are levels to it where you can actually increase speed, increase incline. And that's why when someone says to me, "Oh, walking doesn't burn that many calories," I'm like, I literally just I posted my walking workout the other day on one of my platforms, and someone was like, "I can't complete this," and I said, "Good, I couldn't have completed it either." a few months
Right.
ago, right? Like I've worked up to this where I'm
Yeah.
finishing at a pretty high pace.
Yeah, one thing I noticed is so just sharing my like experience with when I got my breast augmentation years ago, one thing like I couldn't train or I couldn't do anything for 4 weeks, right? And one thing that I noticed is my cardio, and I hear this from clients often where like they'll stop doing cardio for a little bit of time and then they'll do a cardio session and they're like, oh my God, I feel so out of shape. Like I lost so much cardio endurance. And one thing I noticed is like that happened to me after I spent like 4 weeks away from doing cardio. And I noticed that first cardio session back, yeah, it did not take much for me to get my heart rate back up, but you gain it back very easily, right? So like your cardio endurance you can lose it really quickly, but you can also gain it back pretty quickly, I always find. So I think the big take home here too is like you have to really evaluate, is the juice worth the squeeze with whatever type of cardio you're doing, right? Like we've talked, about like how HIIT cardio, it can maybe be good for certain individuals, but at the same time, for a lot of athletes, especially those in contest prep, yeah, it may burn more calories per session. However, it's not really worth the squeeze because guess what? You're moving less throughout the rest of the day. Your need activity is lower. You're not able to push as hard with your weight training. You're not recovering as well, right? So it's kind of like the cons outweigh the pros there. So I feel like when you're considering what type of cardio to do, you really have to kind of weigh out the pros and the cons daily, like when it comes down to what modality you're thinking about incorporating.
That's why I love walking because I look forward to it and I put on a show and I
Yeah,
feel better after. I get off the I
yeah.
sometimes I do cardio just so I can feel better for 15 minutes.
Oh, it's a huge dopamine rush. And I'll tell you, like I'm sure you guys see this too. I tend to find that I'm not knocking on runners by any means because I used to be one. I used to do half marathons, but like I tend to notice that people that do a lot of long distance running or they want to incorporate that, they eventually come to a point where it's like, oh, my hips are giving me issues. Oh, my knees are giving me issues. And like they just have more of those like chronic pain issues that arise when they're like running. Do you guys find that too with like athletes that want to run a lot of long distances?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just hard to, I feel like, do that long term and not run into, oh, hip issues or knee issues or
I've never met someone that's a runner that hasn't had a serious injury.
same, same. Yeah, my mom used to run marathons, and I remember she had all multiple like stress fractures in her feet, like especially after she would go through like a whole marathon training and do the marathon, she'd have stress fractures. It was crazy. I remember being young and like she did the New York City Marathon, and I remember it was like she just had to almost take like a couple weeks after the marathon to literally recover because her body was so beaten up. It just,
Is
yeah,
that
full
is
on
that
your.
effective? Is that effective?
Yeah. I think at that point, it's a lot of people that do that probably more so do it for the performance standpoint, not
Sure.
necessarily because they're trying to look a certain way, right? But I feel like a lot of athletes that come to us as coaches, they want to look a certain way, and it's sometimes hard for them to get away from the fact that, like, no, in order to achieve their physique goals, they don't need to be living on a cardio machine all the time. They don't need to be, breaking a huge sweat, for 60 minutes on the treadmill. Like, that doesn't necessarily equate to what a lot of people's physique goals are for themselves.
Yeah. Uh, So, I mean, that's the shit they don't tell you about cardio, is it's not going to be the primary driver in you looking the way you want to look.
Amen.
When people ask me like, what's more important, diet or training? I say, listen, you can have the best diet in the world. Ain't going to change the way you look. You have to train. That is the most important thing that we do. I know people with horrific diets that train hard and they look really good. And when I say horrific, like they don't eat enough protein, they eat once or twice a day sometimes, they drink alcohol. But I don't know anybody that eats perfect and doesn't do anything, right?
Yeah.
Like,
The
you know,
training is ultimately what's going to sculpt and mold your physique, right? Like if you want that muscle definition, I hate to use the word toned, but like if you want to look toned, you're not going to cardio your way to looking that way. Like it comes from
No.
training, getting under the weights, providing that stimulus that's going to allow that muscle to build and like ultimately mold and shape your physique.
one of the arguments I used to hear was, I want to do sprinting because look at sprinters. Like
Hmm.
sprinting makes you look like sprinters. And that's really a terrible argument Sprinters don't look the way that they look because they sprint. They're sprinters because they're genetic anomalies. They are these freak of nature type 2 athletes that, Evan was around at University of Georgia playing football, and they don't look that way because they play football. They play football because they look that way. And
Yes, I think
so,
that's
yeah, and so don't get it twisted. I'm not saying that sprinting will make you look worse by any means, and it's there's going to be I definitely when I first started doing it noticed a little hypertrophy in like some of my bigger quad calf muscles, stuff like that, but not what I would have gotten if I'd have spent equal time training. But yeah, I remember that being a popular argument, and I probably even said that, yeah, if you want to look like a sprinter, run sprints. Sorry, you're not going to look like a type 2 dominant athlete, like a Division 1 running back, because you put on pads and play football. You're not. It doesn't work that way.
no. Be nice if it did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always tell my athletes that cardio is like one of my tools I have in my toolbox as a coach to get you lean for a contest prep or to, maybe it's not a contest prep, but just during a fat loss phase. And going back to like what you said at the beginning, Evan, if you're already doing copious amounts of cardio and you're wanting to start a contest prep where you have just, let's say, 20 pounds to lose, well, guess what? Like your body has probably adapted to that amount of cardio, and that is what we have to start from and build upon, right? If we're starting a prep and you're already doing 40 minutes of cardio daily, maybe that seems manageable to you then, but that's where we're starting, and that's what we're going to have to build upon. So that's something you just have to consider.
Yeah.
I do find that there is a minimum effective dose of cardio because I used to try to get all my athletes down to zero. I don't try to do that anymore. I find that even just a couple days of like 15 or 10-minute sessions has a positive impact on body composition, mental
Yep.
well-being, nutrient partitioning. And I would notice almost as soon as I pulled their cardio down to like zero, the scale would just start to creep up.
Absolutely.
And I'd be like, it doesn't make sense. I haven't added food. But you just start to have the reverse adaptation to doing some cardio. So
I think
Yeah.
it messes with a bunch of different systems. I think that it I think doing cardio helps keeping your fasted blood sugar down at a good range. I think it helps funnel nutrients a little bit better. I think that it just helps your body overall. Um, I'm sure you guys get this a lot when I start working with clients initially. And let's say, because we've all those clients, like you add like 20 minutes of cardio in, they're like, oh God, I can't do this. It's too much. And it's like just when they get started, right? And they'll say, well, I thought we added this stuff later, like when everything stalled. Like, well, no, that's not necessarily the case. Like a lot of times we can add them, and a lot of times I add them in building phases too, especially when I start working with a client. It's because I find, just like you said, Paul, it allows me to feed them more food, a significant amount more food in a lot of cases with it. I
yeah,
think there's some physical aspects to it. I also think there's some mental aspects of it too with it. Because when you're doing that little bit of cardio, at least for me, there's a little bit of a mental shift along with that too. And I don't make quite as many, I don't call them bad decisions, but I'm just a little more conscious of the decisions I do make when I have just a little bit of cardio added in
fair.
to my
Yeah.
plan.
I agree.
I think it makes a lot of people just feel good to just do a little bit of like feel good cardio, like just a
Yeah,
little modest dose. I feel like it helps with digestion. I also am a big advocate for, this time of year, a lot of people like, I mean, gosh, even if you're living in Florida right now, it's cold. And when it's cold, you're not moving as much throughout the day. So, for some of my athletes that live in like really freaking cold places, they're not moving much. I'll add in a little bit of extra like LISS cardio, low impact, steady state cardio, just to kind of counterbalance the fact that, hey, they're probably not moving much else throughout the day.
And we'll just probably end the podcast here. I think we can just ramble for a bit, but I did something yesterday that I have not done in years. After I got done working out, it's so cold in Florida, and I know everyone's like feels really bad for us because it's so cold
But
here.
it's relative because, like, I have been arguing with people about this. I'm like, I get that it's colder in other places, but like, consider when it's like 80, it was 80 degrees a week ago, and then so it's 80 degrees, and then one day it's just 30. Like, I think that would throw anybody in a little bit of a spiral when it goes from like a
Well,
summer
I'm
day.
already looking this weekend. The high is like 74 and like sunny. I'm like,
Thank
oh,
goodness.
I'm
Thank
gonna be.
goodness.
But I actually went in the sauna at the gym yesterday after just to get hot because
Mhm.
it's something about when you're in the cold all the time, you just don't actually come out of that. So I sat in the sauna for 15 minutes, and I will say I've never been a sauna person, basically because I grew up in Florida in a sauna. Like it's
Yeah.
just Florida is a sauna. it
Right.
felt so good to get in there, sweat for a few minutes, get out and get dressed and leave. Was like, okay, I think I get the benefit of the sauna from that perspective, almost like the benefit of like low intensity steady state. It brought me to a different place, like mentally.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably something that people overlook, just like because I overlooked, when people are like, Coach, should I sit in the sauna? I'm like, no, you're just sweating. Don't do it. Waste of time. But I felt better yesterday. I was like, oh no, this did make me feel better.
It
It always
does. I think it does help for sure.
It does. It always helped me when I lived in the Midwest. Like when I get really cold, I just don't want to like move or do anything. So it always helped me. Like when I'd go to the gym, I'd sit in it actually before I would train just to get my internal body temperature up a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I would get out and like I would feel much better. I'd want to move. So I think it definitely can have its benefits, even if they're not maybe physical, like psychological, mental benefits for sure. I mean, there are places out there. I actually tried one like a week ago just for fun. It's called Hot Works, like where you go and you do a little like I did a Pilates class like in this sauna. So I mean, it wasn't my favorite,
Oh,
but
they used to call that Bikram yoga, where there would be like hot in the yoga
oh
studio.
yeah, they do that. So yeah, this place is called Hot Works. It's like a chain. They
Hmm.
have little individual saunas and you just go in, it plays a class for you. But I've also done like hot yoga before where you go into there's a yoga studio here in Tampa called Bella Prana that's pretty popular. And I went there a couple weeks ago on Saturday and just did a hot yoga class. And like you walked into the room and it literally felt like a sauna. So yeah, it was fun. You do get a couple people that are in those classes though that like are mega sweaters and they're literally just like faucets and it's kind of hard to sometimes like watch that. It's just I don't know. I'm a germaphobe, so yeah.
All right. I think we'll just end on the old I'm a germaphobe note.
Yep. That's part of why sometimes I stay out of like public saunas too, is I just have this thing against like it's hard for me to watch people that are just like dripping profusively off over like public things. Like it just grosses me out.
Yeah, so that was the other thing. Like the average age of the men in the sauna yesterday was 65, right? So I was like,
I'm
um,
sure.
and so after like a few minutes, there was like five or six guys in there, and I was just on my phone, just kind of messing around, and like one guy looks over and he goes, I think we all sit in here hoping that when we walk out, we look like you. I thought, I was like,
Oh,
well,
that's funny.
I appreciate that.
Was that at good old LA Fitness?
Yeah, they have
Yeah.
a big sauna. It was hot in there too. Like, cause I use Brett's quite a bit when I'm down there. He's got one of those like maybe
Yeah.
4 or 5 person saunas, and it gets hot. But this was like hot. Like I didn't last more than 10 minutes. I was like pouring sweat after a few minutes.
Yeah, I've noticed that about saunas. They're all a little different. Like the one that used to be at Powerhouse Gym wouldn't get super hot, and then the one at like Crunch would get really hot. So I feel like they're all a little different.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm probably going to go in again today because again, it's like 30 something degrees this morning, and I just feel it in my bones. Like I'm not warm, even though it's 70 degrees in my house. It's just not warm.
I know. I feel it.
Yeah. Well, all right, guys. I guess, yeah, we'll end it there. By the time you guys are listening to this, though, hop on a ticket to Command the Stage if you haven't already, because I know we have like very few left. So it'll be a good time.
I even hesitate to announce the Allen thing because I just feel like, his reputation for, his knowledge and I saw him present last year at Brett's gym with Brad Schoenfeld and I was very impressed. It reminds me of the old days when I used to go see like Lane present and Dr. Joe. And so I was like, man, it's what we need at this time. With this overwhelming amount of information, you need somebody that is viewed as an expert with both experience and practical and the education piece to go like, here's the truth, right? Like it's hard because, that's like Brett's favorite thing to dig into is like, well, this guy says this and this person says this and this is the actual truth. And, he gets very frustrated with the state of the world, with influencers that
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
out.
go listen to our live podcast that we did with him because that
Yeah.
was basically the whole gist of it is yeah, and it's on our YouTube channel. It's obviously also on
He had a
Spotify.
really good post the other day about some guy that was like, if you want to target this part of the glute, do this exercise. You want to, and Brett was like, first of all, this guy doesn't follow me, which says something. Second of all, he has no education. Third of all, these are all wrong. Like he was like, this exercise actually targets the other side, and I'll show you the study. And it's like, but because this
Mhm.
guy had a following or whatever, or had good graphics, the video had a lot of views, and I think that's where he gets frustrated.
Or
There's
my
a
favorite one was
requirement for information to be vetted on a platform.
Yeah. My favorite was he did a reaction video. This was like weeks ago to this guy who was in scrubs. So obviously he was trying to look like he was like a doctor. And he's like laying on his stomach and he's like flailing his legs, claiming that's how you get rid of your hip dips. But it was like baffling because I'm sure he was in scrubs just to kind of make him look like he was official and important. But it's like people see that nonsense and they're like,
Doctor,
oh,
I'm a
like
doctor.
it's crazy.
We won't mention the doctor on the Epstein list.
Oh
Right.
gosh.
I'll let the rest of
Let's
social
not do
media handle
that.
that. But man, that is a powder keg of stuff. All right,
Yes.
guys. Thanks for listening to the Pro Physique Code.
Bye, guys.